At 46, she didn't wake up to chaos. There was no dramatic breakdown, no loud argument, no sudden tragedy. It was just a normal morning, the same alarm, the same room, the same routine she had followed for years. She stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, not because she was late, but because something felt unfamiliar. The woman looking back at her wasn't sad. She wasn't crying. She didn't look broken. She just looked tired in a way that sleep could no longer fix. And for the first time, a quiet thought surfaced. Not loudly, not urgently, but honestly. When did this happen? When did I stop feeling like myself? She couldn't point to a single moment. There was no clear beginning. That was the unsettling part. She had always believed that losing yourself would be obvious, that it would come with warning signs, with drama, with something impossible to ignore. But this wasn't loud. This was slow. It happened in years, not days, in compromises that felt small at the time, in decisions made out of love, responsibility, and survival. She remembered being younger, not wildly confident, but alive, curious, certain of what mattered to her. She had opinions, dreams, a sense of direction, even if the path wasn't clear. Somewhere along the way, that clarity faded. Not because she failed, but because she kept adjusting for family, for work, for expectations that weren't written anywhere, yet felt impossible to escape. She became good at being reliable, at being needed, at holding everything together. People depended on her, and she delivered. From the outside, her life looked stable, responsible, successful even. But stability has a quiet cost when it's built entirely on self-erasure. She didn't realize it at first. Most people don't, because you don't notice the moment you stop asking yourself what you want. It happens gradually. You stop voicing your opinions because it's easier not to argue. You stop chasing interests because there's no time. You stop imagining different versions of your life because this one feels locked in. And one day, you realize you've been living on autopilot. She followed routines like muscle memory. Wake up, work, care for others, repeat. Days blended into weeks, weeks into years. And the strangest part wasn't the exhaustion. It was the emotional numbness. Things that used to excite her felt distant. Things that used to upset her barely registered. She wasn't deeply unhappy, and that confused her. Because how could something feel wrong when nothing was technically broken? That question haunted her. She started noticing small moments of disconnection. The way she hesitated when someone asked, "How are you really?" The way she couldn't answer when asked what she enjoyed doing anymore. The way silence felt heavier than noise. She realized she had spent years being everything for everyone else and almost nothing for herself. Not because she was weak, not because she didn't care, but because she believed that this was what adulthood required: sacrifice, endurance, putting yourself last. She told herself she would come back to herself later, when things slowed down, when responsibilities eased, when there was more time. But time doesn't return what you postpone. And at 46, she finally allowed herself to say what she had avoided for years. "I don't know who I am anymore." That realization wasn't dramatic. It was heavy. Because losing yourself doesn't feel like falling off a cliff. It feels like standing still for too long while the world keeps moving. She thought about the woman she used to be. Not in a nostalgic, unrealistic way, but honestly. She remembered having energy for things that didn't matter on paper. Books she loved, conversations she stayed up late for, ideas she once believed were possible. Somewhere those parts of her had been quietly set aside, not rejected, just postponed indefinitely. She didn't blame anyone. That was important, because blame would have been easier than responsibility. It was easier to believe that life simply happened to her. But deep down, she knew the truth was more uncomfortable. She had participated in her own disappearance, through silence, through compliance, through choosing comfort over honesty. And now, standing in the middle of her life, she faced a terrifying question. Is it too late? That question lingered longer than the others. Because at 46, the world doesn't encourage reinvention, it encourages acceptance. Be grateful, they say. Others have it worse. This is just how life is. But something inside her refused to settle. Not loudly, not rebelliously, just quietly. A soft resistance. She didn't want a new life. She wanted her life back. That distinction mattered. She wasn't chasing youth. She wasn't escaping responsibility. She was searching for reconnection with herself. She started small, not with drastic changes, but with awareness. She noticed how often she ignored her own feelings, how quickly she dismissed discomfort as inconvenience, how rarely she asked herself what she needed. She began sitting with questions she had avoided. What do I actually enjoy? What drains me? What have I been tolerating out of habit? These questions were uncomfortable because answers bring responsibility, and responsibility means change, not all at once, but eventually. She didn't suddenly feel confident. In fact, uncertainty increased at first. Because when you stop numbing yourself, everything becomes louder, doubts, fears, regret. She grieved the years she felt she had lost, not wasted, but lived disconnected. And grief, she learned, isn't weakness. It's honesty. She allowed herself to feel sadness without rushing to fix it. That alone was new. For the first time in years, she listened to herself without judgment. No pressure to improve, no need to justify, just listening. And slowly, something shifted, not externally, but internally. She began to notice moments of alignment, tiny ones. Choosing rest without guilt, saying no without explanation, doing something simply because it felt right. These weren't grand acts of rebellion. They were acts of remembrance. She wasn't becoming someone new. She was recovering someone familiar. The woman she thought was gone hadn't disappeared. She had been waiting for permission, waiting for space, waiting for attention. And at 46, she finally gave it. She realized that losing yourself doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've been surviving for too long. And survival, while necessary, is not the same as living. She stopped asking if it was too late. Instead, she asked a better question. What would it look like to live honestly now? Not perfectly, not dramatically, just honestly. She didn't need a new identity. She needed authenticity. And authenticity doesn't arrive fully formed. It unfolds quietly, just like the loss did. At 46, she didn't fix everything, but she did something far more important. She stopped, abandoning herself. And that, she realized, was the beginning. If this story resonated with you, you're not alone. Many people don't lose themselves suddenly. They drift away quietly. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this. Like the video if it spoke to something you felt but never said. And turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Sometimes, the quiet ones are the ones that stay with us the longest.